All right, it's that time again. It's Thursday, so that means it's Dynasty lunch break time. Welcome back. My name is Garrett Price. I am your host of this show, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of a trade extravaganza. So the goal today, and it's a little audacious, especially depending on how many people are here hanging out doing this with us, but the goal today, as I knock things over on my desk, is to answer every single possible trade question I can. Now, I try to get to all of them during the show. I miss some, doesn't happen. But that's, while we're doing other things and what's going on. This show, the sole purpose of it is for me to focus on you guys, focus on our conversations, focus on trades, and make the goodness happen. So I know we are in that kind of dead time of the year. This is a perfect time while people are somewhat into football. They just had the draft a month and a half ago, and so they remember some things from that. But overall, they're not paying a ton of attention at this time of year, and so people might not always know who's doing what's going on. So it's the perfect time to be able to capitalize. It's the perfect time to be able to take a look at your team, at other people's teams. Where can you gain that slight edge? What have you been hearing in training camp? What do you know about this class that other people just might not know? So it's the perfect time of year to get into something like that. So let me see. Let me try to get updated on the chat here. That's always the hard part of this is I feel like the chat is always a little bit behind for me. So here we go. I see everybody now. Jimmy is here. What's up, Jimmy? We've got Faith Family and Fantasy Football here. Jordan Davis, Nick is here. Brandon's here. So let's get into it. You guys are ready to go. You guys have all the trade questions already ready. Faith and Jimmy says he just finished up work in the UK. Jimmy, thanks for joining, man. All the way from the UK. Appreciate you tuning in, hanging out with us here today. Just remind you guys, if you don't already, make sure that you like the videos that we do. Make sure you subscribe to the page. We want to really continue to just slowly ramp up our content, get you even better, higher quality content. That's our goal. So the more that we know that you're responding to it, that you like it, the easier it is for us to pour more time, more effort, more money into more content. So with that being said, let's get into the questions. Faith Family Fantasy Football says 12-team Superflex tight end premium. Will Levis for Deontay Johnson and Isaiah Likely. I really don't need wide receiver tight end, but it kind of seems like a value to me. So in a Superflex tight end premium, even though I like Deontay Johnson quite a bit and I like Isaiah Likely, I need to have a clear W. A clear W when I give up a quarterback and don't get a quarterback in return. And for me, even though I think most trade calculators and on the surface, I think it's enough. And I don't think it's a bad trade. I think it's enough. But if I'm giving up a quarterback and not getting a quarterback back, you have to overpay. I'm not settling for a good deal. I need a great deal in order to give up a quarterback and not get one in return. So it's not quite enough for me. Jordan saying he almost missed the lunch break. Jordan, you've been at like every one, homie. Consistency award, gold star. Nick says Taylor and ETN for Bijan. Ooh, 12-team, 1 QB, half PPR. That is tough. For me, usually if I'm trading for running back, I'm a contender. I lean Taylor and ETN. It's tough. Bijan's a stud. And if I'm more middle of the road rebuild, then I'm going to want the Bijan side. But if it's contender mode, give me Jonathan Taylor and ETN. You're getting 2 top 10 dynasty running backs. I love Bijan, but I think the value is probably there, especially on a contender. Brandon asks, 1 QB, 12-team, half PPR being offered, AK, so Alvin Kamara and Nico Collins for Swift, Javonte, 26 first and second. Your running backs currently are Swift, Javonte, Warren, Algier, and McLaughlin. Wide receivers are St. Brown, Devonta Smith, Rice, Ridley, Kirk, Dobbs, Shaheed, and Ladd McConkey. So you would get Alvin Kamara and Nico Collins for Swift, Javonte, 26 first and second. I like Nico quite a bit. I do. But I don't think this trade is that far apart since Swift and Javonte are younger running backs than Alvin Kamara. I guess it depends if you're contending or not. I think I like the Swift Javonte side with that 26 first a little bit more. But I could understand it if you're a contender and you want to, try to do your best to win now this year. But even Alvin Kamara, as great as he is, and we talked about it on one of the most recent Dynasty Nerds podcasts, he's a stud. But Kendre Miller is waiting in the wings. And I'm not the biggest Miller guy, but I think that could get kind of annoying. So, yeah, give me, as much as I like Nico, give me the Swift Javonte and the first side there. Matt says, I traded 2 early to mid, 25 firsts, and a 25 third, Dotson and Dobbs for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mixon. Thanks in advance. I'm gonna take Marvin Harrison and Joe Mixon. Look, early to mid, that's awesome, but we're talking about an elite talent and a running back to help you win this year. So, Matt, I think you got the better end of that there. I would take Marvin Harrison Jr. and Joe Mixon. Vincent says, Neighbors, Devonta, and Ladd for MJH in a 1 QB full PPR. I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but that's a whole wide receiver core there with Malik Neighbors, Devonta Smith, and Ladd. So I'm gonna take that side with all of the wide receivers. I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but Neighbors is a great receiver. I mean, when we're talking all time of the 5 years that I've done the Nerd Score, he's a top 10 guy. Then you're getting Devonta Smith, who's been great, and he's got a contract. He's proven a lot already. And then Ladd McConkey has an opportunity to have a huge season. So, yeah, I'm going to take the package there. Just Josh is here saying hello. Josh, good to see you, buddy. Josh is a good follower of the show, good friend of the show. Known him for a while now. Great to talk to you, bud. Jimmy says, we have a 12-team Superflex. Josh Allen for 225 first and AR. Would adding Addison change anything? Moving Allen hurts. Trusting AR is tough. Oh, this is really good. Part of it is going to depend on where I expect those 25 firsts to be. But overall, I want the first and Anthony Richardson. I get it's tough to trust. Josh Allen's proven so much, but if AR can be 80 to 90% of what you're getting from Josh Allen, and look, health-wise, if he can stay healthy, he could enter that tier. He could put up the points that Mahomes and Hurts and Allen put up. He could absolutely do that. So if that's the case, and now I get 2 firsts, you're taking on the risk, but the reward is pretty juicy. Pretty juicy. So I would go with Anthony Richardson side there. Yeah, it's tough. It is. But I'm going to go with the Anthony Richardson side there. Keep getting those questions in. I'm going to answer every question that I can. Oh, man, there's still so many. I didn't even realize I hadn't scrolled yet. There's so many questions. All right, I got to hustle. Okay. Andrew saying, catching up on the podcast and notice you had Puka as a sell. With rookies like Neighbors, do you struggle with trading straight up, knowing a rookie could bust and you could end up out as a solid wide receiver as at worst? I get it. Most people are going to be higher on Puka than I am. I am not a huge believer in the talent. I'm a bigger believer in his situation. And it's a great situation, but situations change. I would much rather have Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. Odunze is close. You could flip a coin there. I think I have them back-to-back in my ranks. You could flip a coin there, but, yeah, I think I'm taking a lot of these young guns ahead of him. All right. Sorry, had to grab that real quick. Jordan saying, who would you target as a wide receiver 4 in a 12-team Superflex start 10? I'm willing to sell 225 thirds and a 25 second. Other wide receivers are Puka, Waddle, London, and Marvin Harrison Jr. So, yeah, you have a great wide receiver core there. I'm probably targeting, well, let me look at my ranks right now. I'm probably targeting like a Keenan Allen type, like an older receiver that can still get it done. I'm targeting at the high end. I think best case scenario, you can get like a Chris Godwin type of player, Terry McLaurin, like that range. I think that's the best case scenario. But more realistically, Christian Kirk is another guy I would target. Ridley, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper. Like those are the guys that I'm kind of targeting that range at wide receiver. And I get it. In our dynasty ranks, we're ranking them in like the 40s at this point. But in a 1 year, I mean, those guys could still be solid wide receiver 2s, and maybe a couple of them even sneak into wide receiver 1 range. So those are the kind of guys I'm targeting. If that doesn't get it done, then I think you're looking at like the young upside guys. So I wouldn't give all of that, but I would maybe give a second for a late second for like Khalil Shakir, Marvin Mims, Josh Downs, kind of see what I have in that kind of range of player. Jimmy saying 25 first in the Allen question will be late. Still think I would do it, but it does make it closer. Would you trade Marvin Harrison and JSN for Jamar Chase? I have Michael. Oh, Adonai Mitchell, I'm guessing. Ladd and Pickens could be a contender this year. I like Chase, but I expect Marvin Harrison to be a very similar player. So I'm not wanting to give up a ton on top. And I like JSN quite a bit for the future as well. So probably not. If I could give up maybe instead of JSN, if I could give up Pickens, then I would be more willing to do it. But I like JSN more than Pickens. Chris says, love the channel. Thanks, homie. Been a part of the Dynasty Nerds for years, and you guys are awesome. 14-team Superflex tight end premium complete teardown was offered Malachi Corley for Josh Palmer, whose upside is higher. Both guys have a long road to hoe as far as like being really actually relevant. Josh Palmer, his route is more than likely as a wide receiver 2. Malachi Corley for sure as a wide receiver 2. So Josh Palmer, I think, has maybe a tad more upside, but we just haven't seen Corley yet and what he's going to look like in that offense. So this is a really good one. Actually, the more I think through it, I'm going to go Corley. Is there more bust potential? Yes. There's definitely more bust potential, but as I'm thinking about it, I don't think Mike Williams is there for long. I'm not the biggest Corley guy as far as raw ability, but those yards after the catch could be huge. And Aaron Rodgers has had guys like that in the past, the Randall Cobbs of the world, where he kind of gets the slot guy over the middle and gets yards that way. So actually, I switch it. I think I'm leaning Corley there, but close. Tad H saying Kyron for Mixon and Scary Terry. I think you can get a tad more for Kyron, but I don't hate it. I think that's a pretty fair offer, but I think you can get a tad bit more for Kyron. Lavander says, took over an orphan in bad shape. I have 104, and I have Caleb Williams and Love as my other quarterbacks in Superflex. Would you take Odunze and grab the 101, 102 best quarterback next year, or go ahead and grab McCarthy? I would. That's a great question. Next year's quarterback class at the moment doesn't look great, but I'm not a huge McCarthy guy. I would rather take Odunze. I have Odunze higher in my rankings. I love to go best player available, so I have him higher, so I would take Odunze. And then I would hope that one of those top guys ends up being legit next year, whether it's a Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, somebody like that. Brandon saying Swift or Javonte. Oh, that changes the trade then. Then give me AK and what was that? AK and Nico then. Matthew Mitchell saying, "What's up, GP? I recently swapped Trevor Lawrence for Justin Herbert. 12-team Superflex. What do you think?" I think that is a great move. I would much rather have Justin Herbert. We know his ceiling. It's huge. I mean, he's a top, what was he, second? I think he was second in points per game at quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, he looks like a really steady quarterback, but I don't know that we're ever going to get the ceiling out of him that we wanted. So, and I know you're like, well, it's only been 3 years. Yeah, 3 years is a long time. 3 years is a long time. And I wanted to see more signs than we've seen so far. So I love Justin Herbert there. I would much rather have Justin Herbert. All right, here we go. Brandon Baker says 10.2. Oh, sorry. So this is a startup. So pick 10, 12, and 11-1 in a startup for 803. Which side wins? It's tough to say that in a vacuum without seeing the draft board. But my guess is I would probably rather have 803, but I'd have to see the board because there's some big tiers there, and I'm trying to think in my brain roughly where 111 is, or sorry, 11-1, like who's on the board there. But if I remember correctly, there's kind of a big tier switch in like between rounds 9 and 10 for me. So probably 803. But I'd have to look. Yeah, if you're able to give me like some players that are available at the 803, like 2 or 3 guys that were available right around there, and then 2 or 3 players that are available around the 10-11 and 11-1, that would better help me determine where I would go there. Sugar Dunkerton, I love that name. Only running back worth mentioning on my roster is Singletary. Who are some cheap running backs to target, and what would you pay? Joe Mixon, I think, is a great one. Rich talks about him quite a bit. I really like Joe Mixon for a short-term outlook. If you're trying to get somebody a little more long-term, you can look at Tyjae Spears. I'm a big Spears guy. I know there's people that are turned off on him a little bit because of the situation where he's sharing time with Pollard. But he's a guy that I like quite a bit. If you're wanting to go boom bust, now, chances are the owner of this player is not looking to sell because it's a terrible time to sell him. But if you can get them to sell, Nick Chubb is a nice boom bust possibility at the running back spot. So he could be another one that would be really interesting. If you're looking for young guys, Jalen Wright is a cheap one that I like quite a bit, that I think could have some really good upside. Maybe not this year, but next year once more than likely Mostert's gone. But we'll see. But I think he's the guy that fills in that Mostert role. All right, next one here. We've got Sean. Sean says, draft moves. Traded Spears for 110. 102 is Daniels. 1-4, I got Marvin Harrison Jr. 110, I traded 2-1 and got D-Hop and McConkey. Then at 2-4, traded back from 210, picked up Jameson Williams and Wright from Miami. So let's break this down. Traded Tyjae Spears for 110. I have no issue with that. 110, you're getting Worthy, McConkey, or Jonathan Brooks. And I'm a big Spears guy. I just mentioned that. Really big Spears guy. But I would have all of those guys ahead of Spears in my rankings. So I think that move on the surface is good. Getting Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 is amazing. I've seen him go as the top overall player. Typically goes at 2. So the fact that you're able to get Daniels at 2 and then Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, great move on your part. Then we have at 110 traded back to 2-1. You still got McConkey. So anything on top of that is golden because that's the range McConkey should go is 110. So getting D-Hop on top of it, great move. And then 2-4, I traded back to 210, picked up Jameson Williams and Wright. That's the one I'm the most up in the air about, but I'm not a big Jameson Williams guy. I would have, depending on who was there, I might have rather had like Trey Benson than both of those players. Xavier Legette, I like quite a bit too. So that's the only one that I'm like kind of lukewarm on. But dude, the rest of it, beautiful, flawless, like really well done. So I would give that a solid B+. And if Wright pans out, then this easily is an A. Easily an A. The Equinox says 12-team Superflex, full PPR, 103 or 107 and 203. I'm currently in a rebuild, but I'm solid at quarterback. I have Burrow and Josh Allen. I also have 201, 207 through 209, and 301 through 304. If you're solid at quarterback, so basically we're looking at would I rather have probably Malik Neighbors, or would I rather have Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, like one of those guys, or another quarterback, I guess. And then at 203, Trey Benson is sometimes there. We get Michael Penix. That's tough. If Odunze would be there, and I knew that, I would rather have the 107 and 203. But you don't know that ahead of time typically. Oh, man. Yeah, it's all about who's there for me. And that's the tricky part, is you don't know that ahead of time. I'd probably play it safe and take Neighbors, but I wouldn't blame you for taking the move if you felt like a couple of the players that you really liked at those spots were going to be there. Anthony says 12-team Superflex PPR. I have the 106, which could be Odunze or possibly Mayor McCarthy. I have an offer for Baker Mayfield. I would get Michael Pittman back, and then I can draft quarterback at 106, but I'm not sure. I would much rather have Michael Pittman Jr. than Baker Mayfield. Nothing wrong with Baker, but would much rather have him. And then, yeah, I would take one of those quarterbacks at 106. So, yeah, I think that's a great move. It's basically, would you rather have Baker Mayfield and Odunze or Michael Pittman Jr. and Drake May? And I would rather have Michael Pittman Jr. and Drake May, personally. All right. Let's see. Harrison. Who do I take at 1-7? I already have Daniels and Odunze. My team is Dak, Mahomes, Jefferson, Olave, JSN, Javonte, Saquon, Laporta, McBride. Do I pass on quarterback and pick Worthy or Brooks? I think you still go best player available. Probably going quarterback there. But I have no problem trading that pick. Trading back and then picking up Worthy or Brooks or somebody like that. But I don't want to necessarily not draft the best available player. Although I know with 10-team Superflex, it does push down the value of quarterback a little bit. So it's not as bad as it would be in a 12-team. So I don't hate it, but I'm still best player available. Mike says he's trying to level up at wide receiver. This is a 12-team PPR, one quarterback, and he's a contender. Trade would be DJ Moore and a 25-second, which would be late, for Chris Olave. Fair or an overpay? And more importantly, is it smart to pursue Olave? Olave's a really tricky one to figure out. There's a world where he is a very undervalued player because of all the potential targets that he could be getting. There's a world where he's an overvalued player because maybe he's just not as efficient as we want him to be, and that offense isn't as efficient as we want him to be. So he's a really tricky one to figure out. I value DJ Moore and Chris Olave very similar. Right now, I have them. Let's see. I have Chris Olave at 17, wide receiver 17, and then wide receiver 20 for DJ Moore. So I do have a little bit of a gap between the two, but it's not drastic. It's not a drastic difference between the two. I would probably rather have. I think I'd rather DJ Moore in the second, but it's not a crazy overpay. Not a crazy overpay at all if you're an Olave believer. Jordan says, just listen to the multiple RB1 seasons podcast. What defines a player as an RB1, RB2, wide receiver 1, etc.? Just if at the end of the year they finished as a top 12 player. So it's simply just their finish, not points per game overall, because health is a part of this. So did they or did they not finish as a top 12 player at their position in total points at the end of the season? I don't want to make it sound like points per game does not matter. It absolutely does matter. But we're just looking at total points overall. All right. Jimmy said moved Jonathan Taylor and Dotson and Jamison Williams for Addison and Flowers. 12-team Superflex. I'm not a contender. How'd I do? Dotson and Jamison Williams are both players that are a little bit questionable. So I definitely understand moving them. Moving JT's tough. I like Addison and Flowers. The problem is they just both have some capped ceilings. So I think it's fair. I would say it's even. I would say it's an even trade. Jacob says, "What up, party people?" That reminds me of Bluey. Love Bluey. If you're a dad out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Bluey is a fantastic show. It's funny. There are even times where like the girls will get up and like go on to do something else, and I find myself still sitting there by myself watching Bluey. It's a pretty fantastic show. All of that being said, what game we played? No games today. We did games last week. We're not doing any games today. Simply just answering every single possible trade question that I can. That's the goal today. We're getting tons of trades, tons of questions. I need a water break. I'm trying to get to every single one, and there are still so many to get to. So many to get to, but I am going to do my best to get to every single trade. All right, let's see. Where are we at in this? I just scrolled for it. Okay. Sean says, Cup and non-Superflex. What should I be asking for? In non-Superflex, I want an early second. I want an early second if I'm giving him up. If you look in this year's class, it's like a Xavier Leggett, Ricky Pearsall. I guess that's a mid-second, but it's a really good class. So in next year's class, probably needs to be an early since I'm having to wait. AJ Brown for Flowers and a first on a rebuilder. I like that. I like Flowers. I mentioned before his ceiling is a little bit capped, but actually Rich and I just did a Dynasty Nerds Nerd Herd episode where we kind of debate his rankings. And the outlook for wide receivers that put up double-digit points in their rookie campaign and in their sophomore campaign, they average almost 2 points more per game. So you definitely want those rookies that perform well in their first season. Typically, you're going to see better returns in year two. The guys you didn't, you got to listen to the episode. I'm not going to tell you all the details now. It's like I'm replaying the episode. Listen to that for more. But I'll take Flowers in the first. I think that makes sense on a rebuilder. Obviously not a contender, but on a rebuild, I think it makes quite a bit of sense. Just Josh, little strategy question here. I'm in a Superflex 2-point tight end premium league startup. How would you attack the first few rounds? The values on 2-point tight ends are crazy. What's your strategy? I'm always water when I go in there because if you stick too heartily to one strategy and the board shifts differently than what you expect it to, I don't want to be stuck. And so that's something that worries me with doing that. But on the surface, in a perfect world, I have to get one of those top like 6-7 guys. A lot of these young tight ends we're excited about, Laporta, Kincaid, Kyle Pitts. Like I want one of those guys, or Mark Andrews, even though he's a little bit older. I got to get one of those guys on my team. So I'm targeting them early. If people go crazy though, and by round 3, all those guys are already gone and they're just gobbling them up super fast, then hey, take value at other positions and be water. But yeah, I'm trying to target those guys early. Faith Family Fantasy Football, how do you value Kenny Pickett in a 12-team Superflex? Do you think I could get Darnell Mooney and Jared Wiley? At this point, I'd rather just hold him because if he does get an opportunity to start, even if it's just for a few weeks, in that offense, he could be a high scorer, and that's when it's your opportunity to trade him or start him if you need somebody that week. So I like to hold backup quarterbacks. The position I don't really hold a ton of is wide receivers on my dynasty teams. Because I never know when to play those guys. I never know when to play my wide receiver 7, 8, 9. So I roster, or at least I'm trending this way. I'm rostering fewer and fewer wide receivers on a lot of those teams. Mr. Bakesalot said, what's up, homie? My guy. He's another one I'm seeing a ton. Jacob's here a ton. He said the chat's growing each week, and you love to see it. You do, for sure. Absolutely. Jimmy says, sell Jacobs, get Connor and Deontay Johnson, 12-team PPR Superflex contender. I don't hate that. I'm torn on that one because I'm worried about Trey Benson. I think Trey Benson's going to come in here and get a lot of touches at some point. I think early on you'll be fine, but I think come playoff time, that's when I would be a tiny bit worried about a guy like James Conner. So it's probably not my favorite deal. I don't think it's horrible, but it's probably not my favorite deal. So Brandon's going back to where we were at earlier, talking about would I rather have the 803 or the 10-11 and 11-1. So here's the players. 803 has players like Diggs, Keon Coleman, Derrick Henry, Kupp, Kamara, and the 10-11 projects to have Corum, J-Mo, Eckler, Rodgers. For context, I have Mahomes, Burrow, Tyreek, Garrett Wilson, Addison, and Devonta. Yeah, I mean, that is more of a win-now build that you have there, especially with a guy like Tyreek. So I'm probably wanting to keep that 803 because I want to get myself like a win-now running back or receiver. Luis says, Mixon or 108 plus a 25-second, 10-team, one quarterback. Not my trade, but interested to see if the reaction was the same as others. Contender trade for Mixon. I absolutely want 108 and the second. Easily. Nothing against Mixon, but I think you can get a lot more than Mixon for the 108. I mean, just for context, right now in my rankings, let me pull them up here. So 108, we're looking at, what was this? One quarterback, you said? All right. So that does change it a little bit, actually. Let's see. Where's my, there we go, standard. I would say, yeah, because you're looking at, you can probably get Trey Benson and, this. Yeah, I think I would rather. At first, I was looking at it from a Superflex perspective, so I guess it's not as bad, but I'd still rather the 108 and 108 and the second. All right, let's keep it going. What is that? Slightly. Am I crazy for McConkey at 105 in a 1 QB 10-team league? Not at all. After those first four, it's McConkey, Worthy, and Brooks. So I think you're in the absolutely right tier. It's all on how you value those players. So no issue with that at all. All right. Matt says, hey, G, we talked on the Discord AMA recently. Good to talk to you again, homie. Depth everywhere. And considering trading Burrow, I have Mahomes and Allen, to get Daniels and a 25 first, maybe more. Idea is to capitalize on the upside. So depth everywhere. Consider trading Burrow and get Daniels and the first, maybe more. Yeah, I'm totally for that trade. Especially if you're already established at quarterback with two guys that are in their prime. They should be around for at least the next 7-8 years easily. And you can capitalize on a guy that has been injured quite a bit. Get Daniels, get yourself a 25 first. I think it's a great move. Equinox says, a lot of good advice. Josh says, thanks for the shout. Of course, homie. Luis says, if you can't trade back, you're not crazy. Get your guy. Personally, I think he's a PPR monster. I feel like Worthy will be boom bust, and Thomas has a tougher path to targets. Brandon says, also love the Cleveland shirt. Go Cavs. That's right. Cleveland against the world, baby. We did lose, so the world won. But, hey, Cleveland sports. I'm a homer. I root for my home teams. I get it if you don't. And as a Cleveland fan, I understand if you live in Cleveland and don't. Because overall, being a Cleveland sports fan is not always a lot of fun. But I am loyal to a fault. And because of that, I will always root for my Cleveland sports teams. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Matt says, recently moved Tyreek, Spears, and a late 25 second for A.J. Brown and Benson. Thoughts at all? Thanks, GP. Ooh, Tyreek and Spears and a late second for A.J. Brown and Benson. I'm going to take the A.J. Brown and Benson side. I have A.J. ranked just a tad higher than Tyreek. It is very, very close. But he had a fantastic season this year. And I'm really high in Benson. And as much as I love Spears, Benson has that opportunity to get that 3-down workload at some point in the very near future. So give me the Benson side, but it's very close. Josh says, I love Bluey. So wholesome, not going to lie. I watched that show without my son. Get it. Matt said that he also made a move with Rich Dotson recently. Ooh, trade with Rich. Sent Spears, Judy, and a 26th third for a mid-25 first. Ooh. My love for Spears makes this one tough. On the surface, it should absolutely be the 25 first. But I do love Spears. I think it's pretty even. Jacob said, I'm glad you caught the Bluey reference. Currently playing Keepy Uppy with the kids while watching the stream. What's up, kids? What are their names? What are their names, Jacob? I can say hi to your family while you guys are watching and playing together. Also, good on you for playing with your kids. Love the opportunity to spend time with family. Right before this, I was helping my daughter learn how to play the Harry Potter video game, the Hogwarts. What is it called? I don't remember. But she's 9, so video games are like a little bit newer for her. But she loves Harry Potter and she's having a ball doing it. So spend that time with your kids, man. Like, absolutely love it. You're the only one that gets to be a dad to your kids. So do it as much as you can. So love hearing that. Kevin says, been thinking about offering Olave and the 20th rookie pick for Garrett Wilson. What are your thoughts? I would take Garrett Wilson. I am higher on Garrett Wilson, I think, than most people probably. Loved him as a prospect. I think he's going to have an unreal season with Aaron Rodgers this year. And I think people are just soured on him a little bit because of what a disappointment last year was when Aaron Rodgers went down. So, yes, Kevin, give me all the Garrett Wilson shares, even after the disappointing season. All right, Hop Killer, you mentioned trading Chubb right now is tough since the value is so low. What would be a value you would be comfortable moving him? To get rid of him, I would need at least a mid-second, probably an early second. And somebody's going to look at the risk there and say, nah, it's not worth it to me, more than likely. But if you can get him for a late second or even 2/3, that's the move that I'm probably looking to make. Let's see. Mr. Bakesalot said, who do you feel will have more TDs this year? Burrow, Hurts, or Allen? I think it's going to be Allen overall. I still think we're going to get a decent amount of rushing touchdowns. Ray Davis might cut in that a tiny bit, but I think overall we're still going to get a lot of rushing touchdowns for him. I'm worried that with between Saquon Barkley and the loss of Jason Kelce, so maybe we don't get the tush push quite as much, that we'll see the overall touchdowns for a guy like Jalen Hurts dip a little bit. And so I'm going to go with Josh Allen on this one. Ryan says, what's up, GP? Sorry, I'm like, dude, glad you're here. I don't care if you're late. I'm just glad you're here. That's all that matters, man. Hop Killer, would you do something like a late second and Chubb for Brian Thomas Jr. and a 1 QB? I think that's fair value. The hard part for me is I'm a Chubb truther, and I'm not a big Brian Thomas guy. So for me, I would not do that trade personally, but I think the community's value on that is pretty fair. So it's kind of where you're at. I wouldn't, though, personally. Jimmy says, superb effort, Garrett. I've enjoyed the first luncheon sesh from across the pond. I'll be back. Jimmy, thanks for tuning in, man. I know it's not lunchtime for you. It's post-work. So, Dynasty work break. But thanks for tuning in, man. Thanks for hanging out. Genuinely appreciate it. Steven, what's good, buddy? Man, check out Steven's work. He's such a good writer. He says, what's up? Here's one for you. Burrow and Higgins, or Ayuk, Love, and Kendre Miller in Superflex. It's a good one. That is a good one. I am still going to go with Burrow and Higgins. I would have Burrow ahead of Love. Ayuk I have barely ahead of Higgins, but I'm still a believer in T. Higgins long term. And I think even if he leaves, it's not one of those situations where it's a terrible thing for his value. I still think he's going to be a very productive receiver somewhere else. So in that scenario, I don't think Kendre Miller is quite enough to bridge the gap for me. But then again, I was lower on Kendre Miller than other people as a prospect. So that could be playing into it a little bit for me. All right. What's up? Corey says, traded London and a second for CMC and a third recently in a 12-team Superflex PPR league. I have Garrett Wilson, Puka, Neighbors, and Odunze pairing CMC with Brees. Good move, or will I regret trading London? I love London. But if you're a contender, the best move you can get is a guy like Christian McCaffrey. The absolute best move. I think that's a A+ slam dunk. And I love London. I think he's gonna have a huge year with Kirk Cousins. But if you're telling me you can get a guy that I think still has 2 top 3 running back seasons in him and an additional running back 1, so 3 more running back 1 seasons in him, yeah, I don't care how good the receiver is. That kind of player at running back changes things for your league and changes things for your team. So I'm absolutely all aboard getting CMC with that player. And look, you have decent depth at wide receiver, so it's not like it's going to hurt you as much as it might other people. Michael said, pick a side in a vacuum, Bijan or London and Addison. Ooh. That is a good one. I lean Bijan Robinson. It is very close. I lean Bijan Robinson. It's just I'm not the biggest Jordan Addison guy. And I think that's the thing for me. I once TJ Hawkinson's back, he's going to be the third fiddle in that offense. I'm not super confident that McCarthy can do the same things that Kirk Cousins did for this offense. And, of course, they're going to funnel their newly contracted wide receiver tons and tons of targets. So I do worry about Addison a little bit. So give me Bijan. Mr. Bakeslot said, made a big boy trade. Ooh, these are always fun. Love these. Let's see what side you're on. Is Superflex, IDP, tight end premium, half or 1.5 premium. Would you rather have CMC and Rodgers as well as Likely, or Justin Jefferson, Geno Smith, and Cornelius Johnson? Likely owner has Andrews. Oh, man. I would take the Justin Jefferson side. Yeah, I would take the Justin Jefferson side. It is a little scary giving up a guy like CMC, but Justin Jefferson is going to be one of the top wide receivers for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Like, he's that good. He's going to be doing it for a long time. So I'm going to take the Justin Jefferson side. Sutton and Dobbins. This is Larry. Says Sutton and Dobbins for Lockett and Bucky Irving. This is a super flex PPR best ball league. In best ball, give me the upsides. So give me Dobbins and Sutton. Lockett, he just doesn't get the big games because he catches the ball and falls now. Like, there's really not much run after the catch, so you'd have to just get a ton of targets. I think JSN gets more targets this year, and I just don't know Bucky Irving's role. Dobbins is a huge boom bust, and Sutton always has a game or two every year where he gets, multiple touchdowns or 7 catches and a touchdown. So yeah, give me that side of it. Kyle said, rebuilding 10-team Superflex tight end premium start 2. Is it worth trading Puka while the value is high, or is he a hold? Through the chat and chat offer and received Jalen Reed and a 25 first for Puka. Ooh. I like Jaden Reed quite a bit, and a 25 first is interesting. I think his value is still higher than that, though. I would still hold Puka, but I'm all for trading Puka. I think you might be able to get a hair more, and I'd push for a hair more, but I don't think that offer's far off. Like, if I could get a high second on top of it, I'd probably make that move. Jacob said, I have a 6-year-old named Kimmy. Kimmy, what's up? And an almost 5-year-old named Atticus. Atticus, what is good? And Levi, you're one. You don't know what I'm saying, but I'm glad you're here too. So thanks for hanging out with me, watching this with your dad. Hopefully you guys get to watch plenty of Bluey today, and you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Enjoy your summer break. If you get a summer break, most kids at 6 are, I'm guessing that's, let's see, she's going to be probably going into first grade. I have a 7-year-old, and she just left first grade, so I'm guessing going into 6th grade there. All right. Crunchy fries. Who do you prefer in a startup? What strategy do you prefer? And this is Superflex tight end premium at the 109 spot. Wide receiver quarterback or quarterback off the rip? Depends on who's there. If you're getting Justin Jefferson there, then I'm probably preferring that. Otherwise, I'm probably preferring quarterback there and then maybe wide receiver. But of just those two options, probably quarterback. But I could see myself, depending on if Justin Jefferson's gone, I could see myself taking him. If not, then I would probably go like a or if he has gone, then I'm probably taking like Anthony Richardson and then following it up with like Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably the route that I would look to go. All right. Ooh, I didn't get another drink. You guys are crushing it today. This has been awesome. I'm exhausted from answering all these questions. You think like you talk for a living. It's easy. You'd be surprised how tired you get just talking, and more or less into nothing. Like, I see the questions, which helps, but I'm not getting anyone talking back. You would be surprised. Maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. All right. Next one here. Waggle, he says, who wins in this trade? London and pick 20 or Jordan Addison and Swift? For me, it's London and pick 20 because that means I'm at pick like 208 if it's a 12-team league. And I'm probably getting... depends. I mean, I've seen Pearsall. I've seen Penix fall that far. But if it's a league where things go as they should go, then I'm probably taking like Jermaine Burton there, Adonai Mitchell there, and I'd rather those two in London, I think, over Addison and Swift. Ian Evans says 12-team Superflex. I have Burrow, Dak, Daniels, and then Achane, Kyron Mostert, and Zamir. Contender, but wants to trade for Bijan. Should I trade Burrow for Bijan plus? Yes, I would need that plus. And the plus would probably have to be at minimum 2 seconds or a player of that equivalent value. So if I'm just going for like a player, maybe I can get like a Deebo Samuel, T. Higgins, McConkey, like somebody like that on top of it. Because once again, I'm giving up a quarterback and not getting one back. So they have to overpay from what the value actually is in order to get a Joe Burrow. So yeah, it would have to be plus, and it would have to be anywhere from 2 seconds to a first value-wise in order for me to consider moving on. He said, or should I try Achane plus a 25 first for Bijan? Ooh, I don't hate that. I like Achane a lot, though. So if you don't need Burrow, which you do have two good other quarterbacks, hopefully you have a third, though, then that's probably the route I would go. Matt says 10-team contender, Brooks and Benson or Saquon in a late first. I love Brooks and Benson. I really do. But on a contender, give me Saquon in that late first. They're guaranteed. He's guaranteed to help you this year. Neither one of those guys are guaranteed for this season. We have Mr. Bakes a lot. I have the Jefferson side, was able to get the trade done before the signing went down. Don't think it would have worked today. Makes sense. Kyron for Rashee Rice or Tank Dell. You're rebuilding. Definitely not Rice. I might do Tank Dell, though. I need to go, like, after that running back episode we did, it has me really rethinking Kyron Williams. So I'm going to be going, if you haven't seen that episode yet, by the way, or listened to it, really, really good episode. A lot of really good information on the likelihood of guys repeating as a running back one. So I think Tank Dell is fair. You might be able to get more. Many people value Kyron Williams still very highly. I might go Tank Dell there, though. It's close. 12-team Superflex, J.J. McCarthy and JSN or Amon Ra. Ooh, Ryan, that's a good one. I lean Amon Ra, but I'm not the biggest McCarthy guy. It's close, though. It's close. Let's see. Crunchy Fries asking from his question before, still Lamb and Chase over a quarterback, or still a quarterback over those guys? Probably still a quarterback over those guys. Because at 9, worst case scenario, quarterback-wise, let's see, quarterback, you're looking at Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. I'd rather all those guys over those receivers, personally. Okay. Jordan says, I treat the Dynasty GM like the Bible in a startup draft. What's your preferred strategy? Should I take the most valuable player available based on the GM rather than filling out a roster? Take the best available player. Whether you're using the GM, your own ranks, whatever you're using, I always like to take best available, especially this time of year. You don't have to play a game yet. Take the best available players and then trade them for better value later than just settling for somebody. Great example. So if you're in a startup right now, and let's say you're like, dude, I need a quarterback, and I'm in round 2 and they're just going like crazy. So I'm gonna take Jared Goff now because I got to get a quarterback, and he's like all that's left at the end of the second round. Okay, sure, you could, but would you rather take Jared Goff there, or would you rather take Breece Hall or Jahmyr Gibbs? And even if you use that guy to trade later, Jahmyr Gibbs and Breece Hall are going to net you Tua or Kyler or Dak instead of settling for Jared Goff. So always rather the best available player. Corey says, in a 10-team Superflex PPR, would you trade CeeDee Lamb for Zay Flowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Kyle Pitts, and a late 25 first and second? Middle of the pack in this league, and would probably push me towards a rebuild. Ooh, 10-team. I don't love Brian Thomas Jr., but I think the package is worth it. I need more sure things. I actually don't think I would. I need a few more sure things. I love Kyle Pitts. I have him very high. I'm not super high on Brian Thomas Jr., but I'm very high on Zay Flowers. So I'm very high in two of those three players. But they're just so risky. I need a little bit more sure thing. Joel says, oh, man, I'm late. He says, I have a guy kicking the tires on Pittman for Higgins, and what else? I would need probably a second and third worth of value. Like, I would probably want, probably a second or third, maybe like a DeAndre Swift type of player, an Isaiah Pacheco type of player, like somebody like that. where I would do that. Kevin says, thanks for being. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's awesome, dude. We'll get to the just the last few. So Travis's question here. Travis's will be the last one I answer. So let's get through these last few. Recently traded away Amari, Swift, and 312 and 412 for the 1-3 and 2-3. Turned that into Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ladd. Beautiful. Well done. A+. Kyle says, when trading, how much do you value future picks like 25, 26, and 27 first? People in leagues use KTC or other sites that they have those picks valued almost like today's 24 values. Tips on dealing with these peeps. If people are valuing 27 picks similar to 24 picks, then I'm trading them my entire 27 draft. That is so far away. First of all, I hate to say it, but there's plenty of dynasty leagues that don't last 3 years, which is wrong. If you start a dynasty, it's meant to go forever. Like, it's not meant to be something that's turned over in a year or two. So always take the now value in that case. And you can always recover that kind of value later. So yes, I am dealing my entire 27 draft if that's the case. Jordan said, also, should I rely solely on the GM trade calculator? Recently tried trading Jalen Hurts based on the GM. It felt like it was asking for way too much from the other team in exchange. Use them as a guide. Any trade calculators, don't use it as a gospel truth. It's just meant to be a guide. Every league's economy is a little different. And we at Dynasty Nerds value quarterbacks really highly. Your league might not value them as highly. And so that's typically where you kind of see some of the differences. Jordan said, appreciate you answering these questions every Thursday. Of course, dude. Jacob said, what do you make of CMC's new extension and how does it affect his dynasty value? I am, in fact, going to be going in today, and I am going to be bumping him up a few spots. A team making that kind of commitment with that type of money long-term to an older running back does give me more confidence. So he will be getting a slight bump in my rankings. Last question of the day. Travis says, what are you trading what are 3 wide receivers you're targeting trading Kyren Williams for? So if I'm trading Kyren Williams, I think that's a great question. 3 receivers that I'm targeting straight up. I would be targeting probably Rome Odunze and Drake London, Devonta Smith. Like, those would be the high-end guys. If I could get any one of those 3, it's a slam dunk. If it's a more shrewd league and they're like, nah, I ain't doing that, then I'm looking at Chris Olave, DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, like that range that I would be looking at. So, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. The trade extravaganza, it was a lot, but it was super fun answering all these questions. We got plenty more coming up, and a little surprise. Next week, like just like it was the week of the NFL draft, it was the day of the NFL draft, and I was like, no, I can't miss my peeps on that day. Next week's your boy's birthday. That's right. Turning 34 years old next week. We're still doing lunch break. It's still happening next week. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I will see you next Thursday at noon, just like every other week here on the Dynasty Lunch Break. Have a fantastic week.